Hey friends, I'm Kathleen, the CEO and founder of Primal Trust. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe so that we can get this word out to the world about how healing happens from chronic illness, trauma, how to do brain retraining, vagus nerve toning, somatics, nervous system healing, and more. We also have a free ebook all on how healing happens with lots of great tools. You can find that link below the videos in the caption, and thank you for watching. Welcome, everyone. Today I have with me Lauren Wright, who has another amazing Primal Trust healing story for us. Lauren is somebody who was dealing with things like I know you had some digestive issues, hormone issues, hot flashes, skin issues, and anxiety, all after kind of a perfect storm after a root canal. Is that right? Yep. Welcome, Lauren. And I know everybody is going to want to hear what happened and where are you now? And so go ahead and tell us your story.
My symptoms, I want to say, sprouted for me maybe about, at this point, I think it's about 3.5 years ago. I had just finished wrapping up a root canal process on a back tooth. And about 2 weeks after I finished that process, I started noticing a ton of symptoms erupting inside my body. I had hormone fluctuations. I had hot flashes from out of nowhere. I was having leaky gut symptoms. At the time, I didn't know it was leaky gut, but as I continued to research, understood what was going on. I was reacting to all foods that I was eating, which had never happened to me before. When I was eating the foods, my skin was burning or it was itching. Little red dots would appear. This was all very not normal for me. And all of a sudden, anxiety skyrocketed for me, which I think was kind of twofold. I think it was what was happening because I literally had a leaky gut and everything was, affecting me. And I think also, too, when you're having reactions to your skin, it's scary. You don't know what is happening. You don't know if it's going to get worse. And it was the perfect storm for me of everything kind of taking off. So after all these symptoms sprouted, the whole world went into lockdown. I really had no access to anyone. I had talked to a few doctors via Zoom, which was really challenging for me because I felt like they needed to see me in person. They needed to really understand what I was explaining to them and what was happening. So that was challenging for me to have to kind of ride that wave, not having help from anyone, which was not helping the anxiety of the situation. And then a few months after, when things started opening up again, I was able to get in and see some dermatologists and try to figure out what was going on. And it was really challenging for me. I found that a lot of the dermatologists spoke in very absolute terms to me. I felt, I don't want to say so much dismissed, but I felt like they didn't understand what was happening from a whole body system standpoint. It was very much very siloed. Here are medications, use these creams, avoid all these foods, and there's really nothing much you can do for this. And that sent me even further down the rabbit hole. And I also remember saying to myself, like, that doesn't work for me. Like, I don't accept that. Um, and at that point in time, I realized that I was going to have to start figuring this stuff out on my own. A few months later, my whole family, we had gotten COVID, my husband, myself, and our children. And in the middle of having this illness, I had my first ever panic attack. I had never experienced a panic attack before in my life. It was so terrifying to me. And I remember having quiet thoughts at that point, because at this point, it had been months of me trying to figure out what was going on. I felt grateful that a little quiet voice inside of me was saying, like, your nervous system has been turned on and we need to figure out how to turn this off.
Can I pause
And
there? I want to pause there. That is amazing that you had that wisdom. You're plugged into something because do you realize that it literally takes people months, if not years, to get that insight that you've just had? Like you've seen specialists, you have all these external things, and something brought you to the insight that your nervous system was basically in an overreactive maladaptive stress response.
yeah, I just got
How,
chills.
what do you think was the setup that brought you that insight? Or do you feel like it was truly just inspired or any history? How did you know that? I mean, it took me well over a decade to have that insight. So
I mean, I think twofold. I think I've always been a very spiritual person and just always very plugged into the universe. And I think also too, like when you were just saying this, I got full body chills. I honestly think it was a small moment in time of all the amazingness that was to come. And I just didn't know it yet. And I don't know, but I'm grateful that I had that moment, because I think it was just something very quiet inside me that said, you need to be open to going about this a different way and just trust whatever comes your way. And I didn't necessarily jump into the nervous system regulation work then, because then I was still in a something is wrong. My body is reacting. I have to fix this mindset. So then I dove into basically an 18-month functional healing journey, where I literally detoxed everything and anything out of my body, metals, molds, parasites, whatever had to go, had to go. But it was such a grind on me. These detoxes were everywhere, anywhere from like 45 to 60 days. And I remember every detox, I was like, it's going to be the next round that fixes me. It's going to be the next one where it changes everything. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And at the end of the 18 months, I was so burnt out. I remember coming downstairs to my kitchen. I literally took my arm and I threw every single vitamin and supplement out. And I think that was another moment for me where I was like, this is not working. This is not working. And I was sourcing too much of my power at that point out to too many people to fix me.
oh my
And
gosh.
it's like,
Okay. Pause again. You that insight. The stuff, this is not working. I'm
yeah,
outsourcing my power. Again, that usually takes years for people
yeah,
to realize that that rabbit hole isn't working. So I'm just wanting to highlight from I'm like impressed and impressed again, because what you're describing, I hope people that are listening that come in and they start having like these symptoms, they literally end up on a rabbit hole train track for years because they don't have the insight of the nervous system and they don't have the insight, wait a minute, I'm not feeling any better despite spending thousands of dollars, tons of supplements, and to be willing to let go of that authority and throw that in the trash. Oh my gosh. So I'm
yeah.
just pausing to highlight that in you. Okay, continue.
Yeah. And I think, and I mean, I would hope that everything I was pouring into myself maybe was making small little changes, but nothing that I could really physically really be like, oh, finally, like I've made a shift. And at the end of the 18 months, when I was completely burned out, I had another quiet moment where I was like, you are really outsourcing your power for everyone to fix you. But like, you have to come back inward. Like, we have to go about this a different way. And to be honest, at that point, I didn't even care about my symptoms because I was so burnt out. I just wanted a break from it all. I was like, you know what? If this is what life is going to be like for the rest of my life, it is what it is, because I can't keep on this hamster wheel. This is not a way to live. And that's kind of when the universe stepped up again for me. And I'm a big believer in synchronicities. And all of a sudden, Primal Trust came into my viewpoint. And I was like, oh, what is that? And, you know, I didn't really think much of it. I didn't really look into it too much. And then another swoop of it came past me. I think it was like someone else that I was following on Instagram, or I was exposed to it again. I was like, this is so interesting. This is the second time I'm seeing this now. And then a third time had come. And for me, things seemed to happen in threes. And I was like, okay, universe, I'm listening. Clearly you want me to look into this and to do this. And I set up a discovery call, like an introductory call, to just learn more. And honestly, I wanted to make sure that it was a right fit for me. Because I was coming from such a burnout standpoint, I wanted to make sure that this wasn't just going to be like another thing, like another wellness thing to add to my plate. Another thing, and you talk about in the program, like when you start something new, it brings you that relief. And then things can come back. And I just was not interested in doing that anymore. And when I had my discovery call, I had shared with them, I was like, I live a very vibrant, active, full life. I don't view myself as somebody that maybe has chronic illness, but my emotions right now are so dysregulated that can this help me? Like, can this help me figure out how to regulate what's going through my mind? And they were like, absolutely, we feel this can really help you. And something inside me said, you need to do this, Lauren. You have to trust this and you know, take a leap of faith on this. And I worked the program like intensively for about a year. I worked the regulate. I worked through the regulate portion, and then I also worked through the level 2 portion. And I think it's really important to note that I did both of those twice. And you say in the program, do not rush this. You are being paced accordingly. Do not skip ahead. I really want you to live the change. And I really took that very seriously. And I also felt like I couldn't get enough of it. I felt every video I watched, whatever I participated in, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is everything my emotions need to verbalize. Like everything we're learning is everything I'm feeling. I didn't even know that this is what it was. So I just want to share that to everyone. Like, do not rush this. Do not pace yourself and really live the change. When I think back to regulate and I think about like what was so impactful for me, aside from just the excitement of all of it and feeling like finally someone is like speaking my language, my personality, I really needed to understand like the science behind things and what was happening. And it was really eye-opening for me to understand what your limbic system was all about, when you know that your limbic system could be in overdrive. I never understood what cell danger was and what that meant. We learn a lot about the nervous system and sympathetic versus parasympathetic. And this was all very new to me, but made so much sense and how it correlated to my body and to the symptoms that I was feeling. And then I remember when we talked about vagal nerve and vagal tone, I was like, I didn't even know that a vagal nerve even existed. What is that? What is vagal tone? Like when you go to see these doctors, nobody is talking about this stuff. And it was wild to me to learn like how your vagal nerve like really has branches into every system of your body. And for me personally to learn about how that was perhaps playing a role in my leaky gut and my digestion, and learning about when you have low vagal tone, that then could create like a breeding ground for your gut to kind of sway the other way, where maybe you have overgrowth or bacteria or maybe yeast buildup or whatever it may be. Like everything was just making more sense than anything had made sense up until this point. And I just remember like every 2 weeks, I could not wait to do the classes and to just keep learning and learning and learning. And so the science was just so incredible for me in the beginning, and just to understand what was happening. And then we kind of went into like some visualization work, and that was really special for me to learn about that. Up until that point, I very much knew about manifesting and what that was. And I think up until that point, I was like, oh, like you speak stuff out into the world and it happens. And I learned that that was not the case. And you would share a lot of things with Dr. Joe Dispenza and, you know, in the proper way to visualize. And I remember when I was in this season of, you know, still being nervous with what was going on inside my body, I would have these quiet moments of visualizing. And all of my visualizations for my future, they weren't even these big moments. It was like just these sweet moments in my future. The only way I know how to explain it was it just felt very safe and very real and beautiful. And it just quietly reminded me, like, you're going to be okay, Lauren. Like what you're going through right now is temporary, because what I was feeling felt so real in my body for my future that I don't know. I don't know if that was the universe talking to me or, you know, divine intervention, just quietly keeping me moving forward. And then after the visualizations, doing a lot of work with like the pattern interrupt, and that stuff I still do to this day. I think it's also like really important to share that you learn all these tools to have, like, I call it my golden tool belt. Like you learn these tools in Primal Trust and you can never not use them. They're like tools for life. And if something triggers me or flares me up, I go back to the basics of the program. And the other day, something had irritated me or revved me up. And I was like, I am not going to let this go longer. Like old Lauren would have ruminated and I would have been like days on end thinking about something. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go back to my tools and just, implement everything that I've learned. And I had the sweetest moment with my daughter. I was sitting on the floor and she was playing around me and I was doing the I am here now in this. And I think I got up to the I am here and she answered the rest of it. And she said, now in this. My daughter's 7 years old. And my heart like exploded into 1,000 pieces. And I was like, the fact that my children witness me in life, like using these regulating tools, and she had no idea what I was trying to regulate or what I was ruminating on. But the fact that she witnessed like that moment, I was like, this is a gift that I'm exposing my kids to. And like, it was just such a beautiful moment. And to hear her answer that, it was really, really cool. So Regulate was a really incredible introduction into this space. And I also worked with a mentor, one of the coaches through Regulate, which for me was such a beautiful process. Whether it be you have more comfort in the community or whether one-on-one might be more for you, I felt safer in a one-on-one environment. And it was just super helpful in Regulate to really come up with a plan for me and to figure out what worked best for me. And it was an incredible process. And then level 2 came. And level 2 was, and it's so interesting the way that level 2 panned out, where I was like in my life and how I was healing and evolving. It was then time to go like deeper into the work. I guess when I reference like the work for me, it was like really going into the parts work and like loving on these parts. And it's so interesting because where that was pacing out in my life, like I was entering into such a season of pouring love back into me, coming out of that season of nothing is wrong with me. I need to go about this in a different way of pouring love back into my system and like really finding that adult main personality again. And as I say, like, putting my queen crown back on, like really finding that queen energy back in me. And then the inquiry work was really, really something. To be able to question your thoughts. I didn't even know that I didn't even know that you could do a process like that, which I found really, really like humbling. Like you think that you know all the answers or you create these storylines in your head. My husband jokes with me sometimes. He's like the Oscar awards that you could win for the movies that you create in your mind. He's like, is really spectacular. And it's just wild. I guess it's just like you're programming. So to really have somebody present something to you to start questioning these things was really profound for me. And it's something I still use to this day. But I will tell you, like through Regulate and through level 2, I think the biggest game changer for me in all of it was the somatic component. That was an absolute game changer for me. Learning about somatics and how the adding of the somatics onto the breath work and the pattern interrupt, that for me is what crossed me over the bridge. Because I found leading up to it, whenever I would do breath work or meditation, I would still be kind of spinning on my thoughts, or I would still maybe be in my head. And to do the somatic work and to do like the pendulation work. And for me, it was like really honoring where was I feeling the emotions. And that was an absolute game changer for me. So I would encourage anyone to really, really find your home and your place and the somatic integration of all of that. And what does that look like for you and what works for you? And for me, it was like really identifying where do I hold my emotions? And for me, it's in my my gut and my sacral and my heart space and my chest. So for me, certain pendulation movements really open that space up for me. And I also like integrated some Kundalini practices as I learned with time into all of it, but that is a very, very real thing. So that was kind of my journey. through the program. I intensively was really all in for about 12 months. And then I kind of like took a step back a little bit and really just wanted to like integrate and live. And but I find that these are tools for life, and life is always going to ebb and flow with you. And I will never be the old version of Lauren ever again. I will forever be Lauren 2.0. And what I've learned from this program and how it has profoundly shifted the way I think about things and approach things is very different. And that doesn't mean, like I said, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be triggered. It doesn't mean that something might not come up, but it's how quickly can you get back to your middle ground, to your neutrality where you feel safer from within. I've had so many moments in this program where I would do the exercises, you teach all these things and it's our job to implement it. And there were so many times where I was like, Lauren, implement what you're being taught. And I would implement it and I would be like, oh my gosh, that worked. I just did that. I just got myself out of that loop. And I think when you're able to get to a place of power, that internal power, that is like a blessing like no other. That's what I wish for everyone. I wish for everyone to get to that place, whatever it is you're going through, like emotional regulation, chronic illness. I just wish for everyone to find that power and to get to that place. And I still have work to do. And if it's something that I evolve with and continue doing, like I'm good with that. So that was kind of my journey up until that point.
Well, there's just so many pieces there that I want to touch on. Such a beautiful journey. Before I get there, I'm sure people are wondering though, well, what about your anxiety and your hot flashes and your skin issues? Is it
Yeah,
any better? So
it
tell us
is
about your symptoms.
so much better. The anxiety that I was facing in the beginning completely went away. And that was like, thank you, God, like that needed to shift. And I think that came with time, like as I was healing things. My gut is in such a better place. My skin no longer reacts whenever I eat foods. I still think I have healing to do with my gut. I still think there's some things that I need to work on and get that into a stronger place. Hormones are completely re-regulated, better, do not have hot flashes anymore. And I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I had this incredible moment. When I was in the middle of the program, I was on no supplements. And months after having COVID, I shedded a ton of hair. And I was in the bathroom getting ready with my husband. And I was looking in the mirror and I was like, oh my gosh, like I noticed this like hair growth. And I ran over to my husband. I was like, do you see this? And he's like, what am I looking at, Lauren? Like it's hair. And I was like, no, like, you need to understand, I'm on no supplements. Like, I think it's working. Like, I think my nervous system is regulating and my body is able to do what it's supposed to do. And that was like a really wild moment for me. But yeah, I am in much, much better shape than where I was. And just so grateful that I'm able to regulate when things come up in life. But yeah, things are much, much better. Thank God.
I love what you just said. Like, we have been so programmed that it's this wild idea that our own bodies can regulate without supplements. Like, oh my gosh, or I can calm myself down with my own tools. Like, this is what is missing as a human. Like, we have lost our trust, our primal trust in our
Yeah.
body and in ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's so true. And even when you just said that, I was just thinking like so much of this program brought me back to my own innate primal trust of like what works for Lauren. And I think when you get to that place in the healing, you're then able to approach whatever other healing you want to do differently. So I take now a couple supplements to continue with gut healing and, like different immune support, like vitamin D and stuff like that. But my thinking on it is different. It's not, this is what's going to fix me. It's, this is what's going to help support me. It's kind of like a marriage. Like I support myself internally and these things also help to support me. So I just like my approach towards it feels just gentler and more safe.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I am so not a purist. I think that there's a time where sometimes we have to break our addiction to supplements. And like you did,
Yeah.
you kind of threw them away and you book, because there's something there where our power has been put into them. But once we get our power back, it's like eating healthy food and drinking healthy water. If there are certain things within reason that may help us, like 100%. And I also do think keeping that in balance, you don't go back to your like 50 supplements again. It's like choosing a few things that might make sense that you're wanting to work with. Like, I think that's totally fine. But because the relationship has changed, you are no longer putting your power into that thing. You're partnering with it while you know you're doing your work.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was when I think about that 18 months coming to a conclusion for me of the detoxing, it was crucial for me to come back inward. And I would not have been able to move forward in a different way with continued healing if I did not come inward. And I completely agree. My relationship and my thought process towards it all is very different and shifted for the better.
You're one of the few interviews where I've listened to, and I'm like, you have an intact wisdom that a lot of people don't have. And what I mean by that is that the fact that you had all of these symptoms and you kind of went down the rabbit hole a little for a little while, but you still questioned the first authority figure that you're like, no, I'm going to figure this out. I'm not going to just say my skin's always going to be like this. You even said like you didn't go on like those crazy diets, right? Like you ate food, correct?
Yeah. I mean, in the beginning, when I was in the fix it mode, I was, don't eat this, don't eat that.
Yeah.
Everything's hurting. And then when I came back, when I came out of like the year of Primal Trust work and I started working with a functional practitioner again, I said to her in the beginning, I was like, I will never do an elimination diet again. I'm going to eat what feels right to my body. And that's how this is going to be led. And she was like, I totally agree. Like, let's really listen to your body and what feels right for you. And that was a big shift for me because I think it's hard for me. All the elimination diets just kept me in a fear loop. It kept me scared that everything was going to hurt me. And I was like, I have to get off this hamster wheel. This is not working for me.
That this is what I mean, like just that insight again. This is not working for me. I'm scared. You throughout this journey have had this insight that is uncommon. Like, look at what I'm doing. I'm spinning here. I can't do this. Look how I'm putting my power outside of myself. Wow, my nervous system is switched on here. Like I don't have chronic illness. My nervous system is a mess. Just even that you made that shift on your own. So I'm sitting here listening to you, like, what was your life setup that you think allowed you to have these insights that literally usually takes people years, including myself? I was not as wise as you by any means. So I'm just curious about you. Like, how did you somehow remain intact in your life enough to see through some of this stuff? What do you think is there?
I don't know. I ask myself the same question sometimes. I mean, I have really walked some gauntlets. I don't know. I've always just been very spiritual and very intuitively plugged in. I think my spirituality kind of took off when I really think about it. I've had a lot of traumatic loss in my life. I've lost my mom, my dad, my brother, all very unexpectedly, all very traumatically. And I remember after my mom died, and I have a journal and I've journaled every single one of them. I've had over 40 dreams with her. And it was like she was my like plug-in from the other side. And that's when I really started after my mom died, which was 14 years ago. That's when I really opened myself up to there has to be something bigger and I have to plug into something differently. And I think once I opened myself up to that, it's like the universe like whoosh swept me up and I feel like in a way has just always kind of had my back. When I think about being a little kid, I don't know, I always did things differently. I always did what was best for Lauren. I think I was always this little force. If everyone went right, I was like, should I go left? Maybe that was a little defiance too, but I don't know. It's something that's just come very natural to me, and something that I always, always deeply, deeply trusted. And I guess really grateful for that. Even when life has come at me, I always had a way of coming back to me. And sometimes I needed help along the way. I needed Primal Trust to help me along the way. I've worked with incredible coaches. I've worked with incredible coaches in the program who have held the most incredible safe space for me. I've worked with incredible spiritual leaders, and all of this work has just always resonated and made a lot of sense to me and always made me feel safe. And I always trusted what made me feel safe. And that's what I followed.
In fact, you've said that a few times in the interview, and even before the interview, you have mentioned feeling safe and letting that help guide your decision. And that, I mean, it's just brilliant. Like you have so many little insights here and ways and philosophies that I hope that the people listening are capturing a bit of an imprint and a transmission from you, because you've really taken this journey in such a beautiful way. Like, yes, you got symptoms and you got sick and things like that, and that sucks that that happens, but it didn't destroy you. In fact, it was literally just almost like a training ground for you to develop even more of an internal compass to gather more tools for your journey for life. And I'm just super impressed with your navigation of the process, with your insights, with the way you've pivoted in different points. And again, listeners, notice her story. She gets a diagnosis from an authority figure. She doesn't fully take it on, maybe a little bit because she's still inhuman, but not fully. She realizes when something isn't working for her, like tons and tons and tons of supplements, not working. Senses like, wow, the underlying thing right now is my nervous system is going crazy. Like, yeah, I have these symptoms and the rashes and this and that, but my nervous system is going crazy. Oh, I take this program. She says to pace, even though I love it so much, I just want to blow through it. I'm going to trust this and I'm going to pace and I'm going to digest this. And all of those things that you've just highlighted are where I think people really go off the rails and miss the guidance that's there for them. And anchoring into what feels safe. Like, even though I might want to do this, this is what actually feels safer for me right now. It's just brilliant.
Thank you so much. I actually feel like now, kind of coming out in the end a little, I feel like all the symptoms were happening for me. They weren't happening to me. That's my belief. I feel like the universe needed to shake me up a little bit to come back home, to come back inward, to reach that next level of growth. And I don't know what will come of it. I mean, obviously doing things like this and sharing, and hopefully, I think about that sometimes, like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you sharing this and sharing your story? And I've always had like strong light workers ahead of me, always shining a light when I didn't know which way to go. And if I can maybe be that next person that shines the light to be like, no, you can do this. And how do I know that? Because I did it, and just keep going. So it's really just profoundly shifted my thinking. And that takes real courage, to be honest, to sit in that place, to sit in a place of this is happening for me and not to me. And, it continues to test my work and my trust in myself too. But like you said, it always goes back to, it just feels right. I don't know how else to explain it. It just really feels right inside my body. And I'm just going to keep following that.
I love it. When you were really working the program, I'm sure people want to know this, like, what was your routine? Like, what was part of your nervous system regulation routine? What did it look like to be you working the program?
So I think in the beginning with Regulate, I literally had, I have 3 little kids. I'm super busy. So for me, it was, I would drop my kids off at school, and then I would come home and I would give myself, literally, some days it was 5 minutes, some days it was 20 minutes, some day it would be an hour. It just depended on where I was and what I needed. I always, in the beginning of the program, would do, the ABCs. I would do the breath work. If things were swirling in my head, the pattern interrupt. I did a lot of the eye exercises, visual stabilization. I did a lot of that work because I also noticed that sometimes with the nervous system regulating work, I would have like sensations within the body. And I was like, this is interesting. I was like, so I need to like work with this and incorporate some of the eye movements and the physical. So I would merge those together. I did a lot of I would stand up and do the contracting of the muscles. And then I would do every day the pendulations in and out.
Did you do
I,
those sitting, standings, like laying down? How did you do them?
I actually did a lot of my stuff sitting down. For me, the ground to me felt very supportive. The pendulations I would do then standing up because it was like a full body process. Visualizations, I really didn't do visualizations every day. I also didn't want to feel burnt out from everything. So truly every day I would ask myself, like, what do you need today? What do you want to do today? You don't feel like doing this? Don't do this. But a good majority of each day I was present in something. So a couple days a week, I would pick out a visualization. I loved when we got to the values work and like identifying what the values were and like really starting to live that too. So identifying what were my values, what brought life to me. And I would do more of that. So some of my values at that time were like spending time in nature, doing like, different some of the transformational exercises. So each day I would make sure I would go outside, and some days I would do my exercises sitting outside, or I would do my grounding standing on the ground. I would come back in and then maybe I would listen to the next course or, go and research what some of the people were saying in the comments in the Q&A section. And so it was a combination of really of the breath work, the pattern interrupt, absolutely the somatic pendulation, and visualization, I want to say were kind of the core and the crux for me in the beginning.
What I love also is that you did not describe you didn't follow my suggestion perfectly, and you still healed. And that's so great. And what you did is you customized it. What is best for me? Like I give this guidelines and people are like, oh my gosh, but what you've done is really what I want people to do is to look at these guidelines of different practices. I mean, we teach over 40 tools in level 1 alone. You can't do all 40 tools every day. Looking at them and like, what works for me? What's right for me? What do I feel like doing? So you're constantly honoring yourself and you're working with your parts versus against them. Like, we need to do everything she says or we won't heal and da 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 da. All that perfectionism would be terrible.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to highlight because I remember in the beginning when I had all these options of tools, and I remember feeling like, well, I just want to do what I'm told because then that'll work. And I got pushback on that with my body. And there were tools in that, tools that are offered that did not work for me, that I was like, I don't like this, or this isn't like resonating for me. Like, I need to figure this out. And sometimes I would have a session with my coach and I'm like, I'm feeling this way. When we would talk it out, and I was like, what do you think might work better? And she's like, you know what, based on what you're saying, let's look at these set of tools. And then I would try those on. I was like, oh, I like this. And I would also check in with myself like every couple of weeks or every week. Are you over this? Do you want to go back? Do you want to shift this around? Do you want to do things a little differently? Which continued to get me in a flow of asking me, what did I want? Which probably subconsciously reprogrammed my brain to get me out of the loop of everyone else telling me what I needed to do. So it was just wild how all this stuff works.
It's again, key insight. I'm going to have to highlight these in the video. All of Lauren's key insights, all your coaching tips, because there was another one, help to reprogram your brain of what I want. And that's really the whole focus of level 2 is to really be able to do that. And when we do that, I've said this in a few interviews, the people who heal, there is one statement that they always say, that they learn to put themselves first. Every single one of them has that statement in some way, and you just basically said it in your own way. You learn how to put yourself first. You learn how to stop throwing yourself under the bus. I've done some research with internal family systems and parts work, and there's a lot of theory that a lot of chronic illness happens when we throw ourselves under the bus and parts get activated and find a way to get our attention so we don't throw ourselves under the bus anymore. And you've, explained that so beautifully throughout this whole process.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's like, in a way, it's like your parts want to test you because they don't think that you're going to do different by them. Like they don't trust you. So I'm like, here we are, do it different. That's so interesting to look at it that way. And yeah, I definitely think I kept challenging myself in that way to do things different.
Yeah. And I also love that you found the importance of the somatic piece. And a lot of people, I don't think they even realize, they think Primal Trust, and I think brain retraining, another brain retraining program. It's so like brain retraining is 1 out of 40 tools of
Right.
regulate. And the somatic piece, that is where the healing happens, like getting in the body, feeling your body, and you having that intuition to really, make that a big part of your program. A lot of people come to our program from other brain retraining programs and they think, oh, I just need to do brain retraining differently. And like, no, you need to come into your body. And that was probably what was missing. And so um, thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, that's so true. The only way through is through the body. And I think for some people, when you're going through this journey, if things are scaring you or you have fear or there's things you don't want to approach, like I promise you that when you face it and move through it, the profoundness that comes on the other side, like you will look back and be like, I can't even believe that I feared it that long, or I was worrying about something that long. And I always say to myself, and some spiritual healers have said to me, the universe does not want you to struggle. That's not what life is supposed to be. And that doesn't mean that, everyone has their hardships and things that they're going through, but there's such a better way to go about it. And everyone deserves that. And find the courage to find your path and to approach these things and, at the right timing. And when you have those breakthroughs, like be really proud of yourself. And it's such a beautiful place to be when you're on the other side of it.
Mhm. And as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about how you came in and you didn't identify somebody with chronic illness, even though you had, particular diagnoses where some people might have started to already develop an identity that they have some chronic illness issues. Um, you didn't identify with that. And you also had, like I said, you've had all these key insights, and some people might be listening and you're like, oh yeah, but she wasn't as sick as I was, she didn't have chronic fatigue for 10 years, didn't have Lyme disease, etc. And I think the reason, yeah, she didn't. And I think you've actually highlighted a lot of reasons why, because you have a philosophy and a way of living life that I think would have been very hard for you to go down that path. Like you had enough instinct to not, go down too many rabbit holes too long, to recognize when you gave your power away. And all of those things um, are part of the setup to keep somebody from completely crumbling. So I also want to point that out. Like you did have some significant issues, but what kept you from completely going out of life was, I think, this foundation that you've been expressing with your insights all along. And so just highlighting that for people who are listening that might be in a comparison, because it is this attitude that you have that probably kept your resilience and your energy with you, and kept you from having these kind of things happening earlier in your life.
Yeah, totally. And I think whatever you're faced with illness wise or symptom wise, it's all relative to you. And so like for me to be eating foods and my skin to be reacting in crazy ways, that was like really scary for me, and really unsettling for me, and not knowing, is this ever going to go away? Like, what is happening?
Mm.
So I think everyone's illness is really relative to your own life. And so for me, that was scary, figuring that out. And I think for everyone else, what you're faced with and what's scaring you, you will figure it out in your own way too. So it doesn't have to feel like this big monumental thing. I think it's more about you will work through it in the right way for you. And these just happened to be my symptoms. And I took them head on and was like, I don't really accept that. Like, I just don't accept that. I have to figure this out differently. So,
And right there, that might be the number one place to start for everyone listening, because that's kind of what we all end up getting to. I just don't accept this particular diagnosis or outcome that I've been given. A lot of times I know with Lyme, mold, chronic fatigue, oh, this is incurable and you've got this genetic thing and da 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 da. Like there has to be a point to turn around where you literally simply say, I'm going to find another way. And I'm not
yes.
going to fully let this be me. And that is a huge leap for a lot of people to make. And a lot of people right now are probably writing hate mail in the comments, because I get that whenever I bring this point up of not fully identifying with the diagnosis and taking a belief that is divergent from our typical conscious programming. And you have a lot of divergent thinking here, and which is so beautiful. And I definitely want to point it out in all the show notes. So
Yeah, for me, it was literally like, I remember being with the derm and she was sharing all this, and I was like, and that's it? Like, this is how I'm supposed to go through the rest of my life? Like, don't do this, don't do that. Here's a medication, and that's all. And I was just like, no, that's not okay. And it doesn't mean that I don't respect what they have to say, and that maybe some of what they're saying might have relevance and importance to it, but like, who is any other human to cap you in your healing journey? Like, that doesn't resonate with me at all, like at all. So I would just encourage everyone to just really try to find how your heart and your body is speaking to you. And for many who are going through challenging things and challenging symptoms, maybe it's doing a little bit of both. Like, maybe as you're exploring this, like challenging that what maybe something is being shared to you by a practitioner, and also being like, okay, I'm still going to go along with this. Like, both can be okay at the same time, but everyone's doing the best that they can. And I think when we go to doctors for help, they're doing the best that they can with what they know. But maybe they don't know everything that's going on inside of me. Like, they're doing the best that they can with what I'm presenting to them. And if they can't fix it, that's okay. I'm just going to keep trotting along.
yeah, I love that you highlighted the both and. It's true. We can not accept somebody's prognosis while accepting their helping tools in the moment. And I always say that, like, you can do your nervous system work and your functional protocols, but it is about getting your power back and recognizing where with these other things have you given your power away and lost your own intuition of, like, for me, it happened over and over. I'd be taking stuff that literally was making me sicker, but because it was prescribed and I was so desperate, I just kept taking it. And I
Right.
could tell it wasn't working, but I
Right.
couldn't stop myself because I'd lost my power.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's really important. Live in the and, don't live in the either or. To me and my body, living in the either or feels very restrictive, feels very siloed. It feels scary. It feels constricting. Living in the and brings me to a much bigger field of possibilities. I am experiencing symptoms, and something else might work better. And I think when you can live in the and, your world opens up a little bit.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, we definitely need to go through this and write out all Lauren's tidbits here. So this is so beautiful. And now that you have this golden tool belt and you have reclaimed your power, what is next for you?
Oh my gosh, what is next for me? I think I just want to continue just growing and learning and continuing to build a resilient nervous system, just a really strong, regulated nervous system. And, just helping wherever I can, being a light worker for anyone else that needs a flashlight to be shined on the path that they're on. And um, just always being a bright spot for anyone else that might need it. That's truly where I am kind of right now. It's just continuing to work on me and trusting what's flowing my way, the mystery of life, and just helping where I can. And that's kind of where I am right now. I don't have these like big elaborate plans. It's just getting me to like just continuing to work and evolving Lauren and getting to just a really, really resilient place and helping where I can.
Mm. I'd say you're well on your way to that resiliency. You've demonstrated it with the way that you think, the way that you've implemented tools, the perspectives that you have on your past, and the perspectives that you've shared for people who are on the same journey. It's remarkable, and it's just an honor. Like I told you before this interview, for me, I've been doing these interviews now the last couple months. And it has filled me with so much joy to be on this end, hearing stories and being re-inspired. And literally, I get taught by every single one of you. I mean, today there were so many key moments where you have a clearer transmission than I even have on that particular aspect. And it's just so cool for me that people are taking this work and enriching their lives and bringing their own channel back out into the world and teaching others through their own lens. There's nothing more rewarding than this kind of conversation. So thank you.
I mean, thank you. This has been, I'm so glad that you went through your journey and you put together this program, and you are a force in this world of good. And I feel so grateful that I came across your program, and it truly had a profound, profound shift in my life. And if I can take what I've learned and sprinkled it along the way. So just thank you for your bravery and your courage and your vulnerability. I don't think people know how hard it is to be vulnerable, even doing something like this. Like, it's not easy. And I'm giving you a huge heart hug through this screen.
Oh,
Truly, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're a light worker, and I feel very blessed to have been exposed to you and everything that has come from you in this program.
thank you, Lauren. Thank you. Yeah, I look forward to hearing more from you. We'll definitely have to have you back and share what your latest epiphanies are, because you've got a lot of wisdom to share in the world. So thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.